Welcome to Occult Archives.
Yeah.
We're not in some, spooky library today.
No dusty shelves.
So going deep into history's most talked about, sometimes feared books, to uncover the mysteries hidden inside. It's kind of like literary archaeology.
A bit more thrilling, perhaps.
Right, exactly. And we're not here to, tell anyone what to believe.
Not at all.
This is about understanding, really understanding the ideas that have kind of resonated and sometimes maybe even rattled people for centuries. So today's journey takes us to a collection with a pretty impressive title.
It does.
The Hermetic Museum Restored and Enlarged.
Uh-huh.
Now, okay, when you hear museum,
Right.
you probably picture old stuff, artifacts. And this isn't one like ancient scroll, though.
No, it's more of a curated collection. Think of it like an anthology, published in Frankfurt back in 1678.
Okay.
Actually, it expands on an earlier edition from 1625. That one's much rarer.
So like a greatest hits of alchemy.
Kind of, yeah. It brings together these shorter alchemical writings, like a good introduction to the field, really.
Easier to digest than, say, the massive Theatrum Chemicum.
Oh, absolutely.
Or that's what I imagine.
Much more approachable.
Right. Or even Manjadis's Bibliotheca Chemica Curiosa.
Yeah.
So the Hermetic Museum, it's like a curated exhibit. Those big collections you mentioned.
Right.
They were all about.
Right.
Like the superstars of early alchemy.
Right. Exactly. Kebara, all those Arabian alchemists. Then you have the writings attributed to, well, Hermes Trismegistus.
Almost mythical, right?
Almost mythical figure. And figures like Raymond Lully,
Yeah.
Arnold de Villanova,
Big names.
Bernard Trevisan. Huge names in alchemy.
So our mission, our deep dive mission today,
Yes.
is to unlock some of the core alchemical concepts, the insights that are presented in this Hermetic Museum.
That's right. Give you a taste of the core ideas without having to tackle those massive volumes yourself.
Exactly.
Right, to the good stuff.
Right, to the good stuff, exactly. Okay, so let's dive in to what seems like a pretty foundational text.
Okay.
The Golden Tract concerning the Stone of the Philosophers.
By our anonymous German philosopher.
Right, anonymous German philosopher. From the get-go, this author seems to have a clear purpose, like what they want the reader to get out of this.
Oh, absolutely. He's very direct in the preface, wants to cut through what he sees as a lot of misinformation floating around. Talks about wanting to clear away all the, as he puts it, rouge and powder of philosophy that was clogging up the alchemical libraries of the time. Really wants to steer readers towards what he believes is, the real deal, the foundation of truth in alchemy.
Lead them out of the wilderness.
Exactly, away from that pathless wilderness of false teachings. He's positioning himself as a trusted guide in a field that was apparently full of confusion.
So what is this foundation of truth, the core idea that he's trying to, bring to light?
Well, the central tenet, which he emphasizes right away, is that the Philosopher's Stone, that legendary substance, with its incredible powers, it's made of, and I quote, one thing and with one thing. To really hammer this home, he even quotes Arnold of Villanova, who calls the stone, get this, the flower of flowers, this idea of ultimate unity, right? Singular origin, singular process at its core.
He doesn't stop there, though. He brings in a whole bunch of alchemical heavyweights to support this idea.
He does. It's like he's building this unshakable argument. He reinforces it with quotes from Arnold again in his letter to the King of Naples from Rosinus Lilium Geber.
Name dropping.
Name dropping, exactly. They all echo this idea that the stone comes from a single source. Geber, in his summary, calls it the one medicine, implying that you're not adding or subtracting anything, just getting rid of the unnecessary. This focus on singularity, it's really striking.
But then he kind of throws a curveball,
Does
doesn't he?
it? Does, yeah.
He brings insights from the crowd.
Correct.
Who mentions a body and a potent acid? Now, that sounds like two things to me.
It does, doesn't it?
So is this contradicting this whole one thing idea?
Well, it seems like it on the surface. Cites does refer to a foundational body, which he equates to gold needing to be transformed into a clear spirit, and then a powerful acid to achieve this transformation. But the anonymous author, he steps in to clarify. He says the underlying substance, it's still fundamentally one, according to the alchemical sages.
Okay.
Think of it like, I don't know, like water. Water can be ice, liquid, steam, but it's still H2O at its core.
Got it.
So even though Cites talks about a body and an acid, the origin, the essence is still singular.
So two components, maybe, but the origin, the underlying essence, that's still one thing. It's like different forms of the same thing. Now, this one thing, this mysterious substance, it's not some rare element or hidden in a distant land, is it? He actually describes it as something quite common.
He does. He says it's right before the eyes of all, and I quote, "Everybody sees it, touches it, loves it, but knows it not." It's like the ultimate hidden in plain sight mystery, right? Something we encounter every day, but we just completely miss its true nature.
It's a very intriguing idea, isn't it? Something so commonplace. But its essence is totally veiled.
Totally veiled.
And he also, talks about its contradictory qualities, adding to this mysterious nature.
Yeah, he calls it glorious and vile, precious and of small account, and it's found everywhere. This kind of duality, holding these opposite qualities, it's a big theme in alchemical thought. Suggests that the most profound secrets might be hidden within the ordinary, within the mundane.
And this mysterious matter, this, one thing, as he called it, it goes by a whole bunch of different names, doesn't it?
It does. He gives us examples like the red lion, which Paracelsus used. And then you have quicksilver coagulated in its innermost chambers, a term attributed to Hermes.
Oh, wow.
And it's also referred to as salt in the rosary of the philosophers. And the author's point is, this abundance of names, this is why the foolish know it not. Meaning those who haven't really studied the underlying principles of nature, they're lost.
It's like a secret code.
It is.
Okay, so this sheer number of names acts as camouflage, preventing those who aren't really searching from finding it. He also cautions against misunderstanding the term salt. You know, how the alchemists use it.
Right.
It's not the stuff we sprinkle on our food, right?
No, not table salt. This is different. The Rosary of the Philosophers makes that very clear. It states that the salt of metals is the philosopher's stone, for our stone is water congealed in gold and silver.
Congealed water.
And then Geber chimes in. He clarifies this congealed water is what, quote, the vulgar call mercury. And he tells the alchemist too, and I quote, resolve the sun and moon, which represent gold and silver, into their dry water. Again, pointing to a specific alchemical understanding of mercury.
So when they're talking about salt, they're not talking about, the stuff in our kitchens.
Right.
It's a metaphor.
It's a metaphor for this core alchemical concept, this principle.
Yeah.
Connected to the essence of metals, not just a simple mineral.
And it gets even more interesting because the sages, they also refer to their earth as salt, according to the sounding of the trumpet.
They do.
It's all a bit mind-bending, isn't it?
It is. It really highlights the symbolic, multi-layered language of alchemy. So the earth that's left behind. At the bottom of the distillation vessel, this residue, it's thought to embody a fundamental salt-like principle. It's fixed, stable, like their concept of salt. And the allegories of the wise, they further support this, saying that bodies flowing from our bodies, referring to alchemical substances, are salts and alums. And they even call the philosopher's stone salt in the scale, where they say it can exalt earth into its own mineral salt. So salt here, it's this key principle with a very specific alchemical meaning.
Okay, so salt is not salt.
Right, exactly.
Got it. Moving on, the anonymous author then talks about the generation of the stone, and he brings up this idea that it needs to be generated from its own seed. This sounds very organic.
It does. He directly compares it to the natural world, to reproduction in nature. He quotes Basil Valentine, highly respected alchemist, who says that just like animals multiply, each according to their kind, through their common nature, the philosopher's stone can only be obtained from its own seed.
Makes sense.
Meaning the fundamental material that it was originally derived from, like begets, even in alchemy.
So where does this seed, this crucial seed, come from? I'm guessing it's not just any random piece of metal.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
The author points us to the metallic root, the very origin of metals within the earth.
Okay.
He stresses the role of sulfur and quicksilver, which we've talked about has that specific alchemical meaning linked to mercury. He says these contain a vital salt, which he calls, poetically, their quickening soul.
I love the language.
And he even quotes Draco, another alchemical authority, who firmly states that only substances that come from sulfur and mercury have the power to transmute metals, so the building blocks of the stone. They're essentially linked to the very essence of metals themselves, sulfur, mercury, and this vital salt.
So you might think, okay, imperfect metals,
right,
like lead or tin. That could be a starting point for this great transformation. But the author, he addresses that.
He does, and with good reason. He acknowledges that many alchemists, maybe those who are, less informed or a bit too eager for results, they might believe, that the substance of the white and red tinctures, key stages in the alchemical work,
Right.
can be extracted from imperfect metals, base metals like tin, lead, copper, iron. But he argues this is a misunderstanding. They're misinterpreting the words of the real sages.
Okay.
He points specifically to Geber's statement that, and I quote, "The mass for fermentation we generally gain from the imperfect bodies." Now that sounds like he's saying to use these less noble metals.
Right. It does. Yeah. So how do we reconcile that with this whole idea that you can't get perfection from imperfection?
Well, this is where understanding the sages parabolically comes in,
Okay.
not taking their words literally
Yeah.
at face value.
Right.
He argues that true perfection can't come from metals that are inherently imperfect, whether they're used individually or mixed. To support this, he brings in the sounding of the trumpet, Avicenna, Lullius, and a bunch of other alchemists who all agree that, and again, I quote, "the pure substance of mercury is selected by us for our work."
So Gaber mentioning imperfect bodies,
Right.
that's more symbolic.
It's more allegorical,
Hmm.
maybe referring to an early stage of processing,
Mm-hmm.
but not the fundamental source of the stone.
Sure.
The real foundation is in the purest form of mercury.
So the purest form of mercury is key. And the author is very clear about why base metals, with their impurities, why they won't cut it.
Exactly.
They're flawed from start.
They're gross. They're made impure by what he calls impure and unessential sulfur. And this prevents them from going through that deep purging, that cleansing that's so important in alchemy.
Makes sense.
And he notes that these base metals, they can't handle the intense, prolonged fire that's essential in their processes.
Right, because if you're aiming for, ultimate purity, you can't start with something that's inherently impure.
Right.
Now, the author also talks about this very special water,
Yeah.
or menstruum,
Yes.
which I'm assuming is not something you drink.
No.
What's so special about this alchemical
Oh,
liquid?
well, this water, or menstruum, it's not your typical water. Raymond Lully, a major figure in alchemy, is quoted saying that knowing about this menstruum, it's, quote, "a thing without which nothing can be done in the magistry of this art."
That's a pretty big statement.
It is the special liquid. It can do something pretty remarkable. It can dissolve metals, break them down to their core.
Right.
At the same time, it preserves their essential metallic nature.
So it breaks them down, but doesn't destroy them.
Exactly. Raymond calls it, quote, "the water by which the metals are solved while all their essential properties are conserved." It's a solvent, but it doesn't erase what it dissolves.
It sounds almost magical, doesn't it?
It does.
This ability to dissolve and preserve at the same time. The author even calls it the great arcanum.
The biggest secret.
So we're not talking about something you'd find just lying around, right?
No.
This is top secret alchemical knowledge.
Closely guarded.
Right. But the author does give us a couple of hints
He does, like breadcrumbs.
to kind of, lead us down the path.
To follow, yeah. The first hint comes from the abridged rosary, which mentions something called the solution of the body into water, i.e. into quicksilver, as the very foundation of the art.
Okay.
This involves dissolving gold, often hidden, symbolically, within the body of magnesia.
Okay.
The aim is to reduce it back to its primal first matter, which is considered to be sulfur and quicksilver.
So this solution is not about destroying. It's about breaking it down to its core components.
Exactly, a reduction to the primal element.
Okay, so that's the first hint. What's the second one?
Well, the second clue comes from the writings of George Ripley, specifically his Proemium of the 12 Gates.
And what does Ripley reveal about this mysterious water?
Well, the author of the Golden Tract doesn't actually quote Ripley directly,
Okay.
but he implies that Ripley's work, it offers crucial insights into the nature of this alchemical menstruum
Okay.
and how it works with metals. It suggests that Ripley, he provides more details
Yeah.
about its properties or
Yeah.
how it interacts with metals.
So solution is key in alchemy.
Yeah.
But the author then distinguishes between a first and a second kind of solution.
Right.
So it's not just one type of dissolving.
No.
There's levels to
He draws on Arnold of Villanova again to
Okay.
explain.
Okay.
He says the first solution is that reduction of the metallic body back to its first matter.
The basic building blocks.
Right, its basic components. But the second solution, that's more advanced. A perfect process. It involves the simultaneous and complete dissolution of both the body, the fixed metallic substance, and the spirit, often associated with mercury.
Okay.
So in the second solution, the solvent, the thing being dissolved, they stay connected.
They're bound together.
And this bodily dissolution, it's accompanied by what they call a consolidation of the spirit.
They're bringing things together.
Yeah. So first you separate, back to basics, and then a more integrated transformation, dissolution and reunification. It's like taking something apart and rebuilding it in a better form.
That adds a whole new layer of complexity to the alchemical understanding of transformation.
It does.
Okay, let's move on to the next text. In the Hermetic Museum,
Okay.
The Golden Age Restored by Henry Metathenus. This author makes some bold claims right from the start.
Bold claims.
He talks about a personal revelation,
Yeah.
a divine one.
He does. Metathenus claims that God himself directly answered his prayers and revealed to him the knowledge of the true center within the center of the triangle, which is a bit of alchemical symbolism, and the identity of the one true matter of the Philosopher's Stone.
Wow.
He goes even further, says he's holding this true matter in his very hands.
That's a big statement.
It is very direct claim of divine inspiration.
So you'd think, with such a revelation, the path would be clear.
Right.
But apparently it wasn't that simple. There was still a lot of work to do.
Right.
A lot of learning involved.
Metathenus talks about the next 5 years of intense struggle, of dedicated effort to fully grasp the practical side of the art.
So even with this divine guidance,
Even with that,
there's still a lot of work to do.
still a lot of work. He talks about the challenges of figuring out how to extract and mix what he calls the blood of the red lion and the glue of the white eagle.
More alchemical metaphor.
Exactly.
I like it.
And how to combine them correctly. Subject them to the secret fire. He stresses that, even with this head start, this divine inspiration, constant, tireless effort was needed to really master the alchemical work.
He seems to be very critical of a lot of the traditional alchemical practices.
Yeah.
And all that complicated equipment that they
Oh,
use.
yeah. He's not a fan of the fancy stuff.
He's all about keeping it simple, isn't he?
Streamlined.
Streamlined.
Yeah. Metathenus dismisses things like purgations, sublimations, distillations, calcinations, all those things, and all those fancy furnaces and vessels. He calls them mere plausible impostures and frauds. Basically distractions from the true, simpler path.
To ditch the gadgets.
Ditch the gadgets, get back to basics. He contrasts all that stuff with nature and how nature achieves alchemical transformation. He's arguing for a return to fundamental natural processes.
And he's not alone in this view. He brings in Theophrastus to kind of back him up.
He does. Metathenus quotes Theophrastus, who criticizes alchemists who waste their time, searching for the Philosopher's Stone in all sorts of things. Wine, imperfect metals, blood, plants, you name it.
Theophrastus is not impressed.
Not impressed at all. He calls these approaches full of lies and thievery, driven by the alchemist's own foolish fancies. They're not following the true principles of nature.
So stick to natural processes.
Exactly. No need for all the convoluted methods.
And Metathenus includes this epigram by Hermann Detichius, which seems to sum up the whole alchemical journey.
It does. Roadmap.
A roadmap to success. It talks about the need to seek diligently, to find the true matter, to purify it, to join the essential components together, to mature it patiently. And finally, the attainment of the golden tincture, which Detichius calls the center of nature. It's a remedy for all metals and for all sick persons.
A cure-all?
A cure-all.
Okay.
But he ends by saying, the solution is of God, bringing us back to Metathenus' divine inspiration.
Right back to the beginning.
Full circle. Full circle. He then moves on to some allegorical storytelling, starting with this reference to Reuben, Leah, Rachel, and Jacob, and their wheat harvest.
Uh-huh.
It's a bit of a jump.
It is.
What's the alchemical connection there?
The connection, while maybe not obvious at first, it probably lies in the symbolism of exchange. This idea of something valuable being found unexpectedly, like the mandrakes, the dudame. Reuben finds them and gives them to Leah so she can be with Jacob. It's a metaphor. For finding and exchanging alchemical knowledge, maybe even the matter itself, it suggests that secrets can be found in ordinary events, in simple exchanges.
And then he jumps to a very different story.
He does.
Moses and the golden calf.
Right.
That's a bit of a contrast, isn't it?
Yeah. To a totally different image. The author emphasizes how Moses destroyed that calf, Wonderful and masterly destruction of the metal by the man of God, is how he puts it. Grinding it to powder, burning it, scattering it on water.
Making it drinkable.
Making it drinkable, exactly. Completely transforming it.
So this destruction, this purification.
It's a parallel to alchemical processes.
Dissolving and reconstituting metals.
Exactly. It's saying that sometimes. Destruction, breaking things down. It's necessary.
To reach a higher state.
To reach a higher state.
Got it. He then introduces this mysterious symbolic figure, the Virgin.
The Virgin.
Who is connected to the discovery of the stone.
She is a central figure in the allegory, represents the pure essence of the alchemical matter.
Okay.
She's described as born of the dew of heaven, nourished by air and fire, and the queen of the earth. With hidden treasures, it evokes this substance that is pure, ethereal, connected to the elements, and very valuable.
And he connects this virgin to the wisdom of King Solomon.
Yeah.
And the importance of discernment.
He does. Bringing in Solomon, known for his wisdom and his ability to see the truth, it emphasizes how important it is to truly understand, to have spiritual insight, to recognize and work with this substance, which is easily overlooked. Remember how Solomon couldn't judge the women in his harem until one was set apart? It's like that. You need focus, discernment, a spiritual approach to identify the true alchemical matter amongst all the distractions and false appearances. It's about seeing true value where others don't.
And the reward for this discernment and understanding. It's pretty big. Restoration of intellect.
Yeah.
Memory.
Yeah.
The ability to comprehend the deepest secrets of nature.
It's like a path to enlightenment as much as material transformation.
Mattheanus then talks about how the Philosopher's Stone was sought after by the patriarchs. He even mentioned it being revealed to Adam himself.
It's giving it this ancient, almost primal significance.
It's like a lost piece of ancient wisdom.
Passed down through generations.
Right. And he says it granted extraordinary longevity and immense wealth, making it even more desirable throughout history. He also mentions that even the Gentiles, those outside the Judeo-Christian tradition, they revered it as a divine gift, recognizing its potential and guarding its secrets. So this desire for a transformative substance with the power to heal and enrich, it's a universal human aspiration across cultures and across time. Mattheanus then states his intention to reveal what he believes is the right way.
The right way.
To achieve this knowledge. And he organizes his work into 4 parts.
4 parts?
A clear structure.
A systematic approach in a field known for being very obscure.
So he's trying to demystify it.
He wants to make it clear, step by step, towards true understanding.
And he finishes his preface by stressing
the need for inner harmony, spiritual harmony.
Spiritual harmony with God's creation. As a key to success in the alchemical work, it's this connection between the inner state of the alchemist and their ability to work with the material world.
So it's not just about the lab work.
Not just about the lab work.
It's about your inner state.
The alchemist's role is to cultivate, to prepare.
To tend.
To tend. But the growth, the transformation, that comes from a higher power, from God.
It's a collaboration.
A partnership between the human and the divine. Both of these texts, they each have their own way of leading the reader to a deeper, more genuine,
more authentic
understanding of alchemical principles.
Exactly.
Now let's talk about some of the key concepts and recurring analogies in alchemical thought.
Okay.
These weren't just, step-by-step instructions. There was a whole other layer of symbolism going on.
Absolutely. Layers of meaning.
Right.
These analogies, they're not just there for illustration, they're key to understanding the deeper meaning, the philosophy, even the spirituality behind alchemical practice. One of the biggest ones is this connection between the transformation of metals and the transformation, the redemption of the soul.
The inner and the outer transformation, mirroring each other.
Exactly. A microcosm reflecting the macrocosm.
And the Philosopher's Stone itself. It's way more than just something that turns lead into gold.
Oh, much more than that.
Right.
It's often called a medicine above every medicine, a universal panacea. It could transmute metals, but also had healing properties, rejuvenating powers, even hints at extending life. Now, we have to say, as hosts, we're not giving medical advice. We're not endorsing any of these historical claims.
Of course not.
But it's important to understand that in their worldview, the stone was incredibly powerful.
Holistic perfection on all levels, material, spiritual, physical.
Exactly.
We're exploring their beliefs.
Right.
Not validating any medical claims.
Right.
There's also this interesting theme of prefiguration,
Prefiguration.
where figures
Yeah.
and events from the Old Testament are seen as foreshadowing the stone.
And its properties.
And even Christ.
Yes. This blending of religion and alchemy, very characteristic of the time.
Give us some examples.
Sure, the binding of Isaac,
By Abraham.
Jacob's ladder, connecting heaven and earth, the brazen serpent Moses used to heal the Israelites, all
Wow.
of these, seen through an alchemical lens
Wow.
as representing different aspects of the stone.
Okay. And this cornerstone metaphor, the rejected stone becoming the most important one.
Yes.
It's used for both Christ and the Philosopher's Stone.
A powerful dual image. References across Scripture in Isaiah, Psalm 118, Matthew 21, Acts 4,